call this meeting to order on November 7th, 2017. City Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Abraham?
Present.
Commissioner Holland?
Here.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson?
Present.
Mayor Harless?
Here and present. Commissioner Holland, do you have the invocation?
Dear Lord, thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of our city. Help us to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Give us a spirit of service. Help us see the humanity and dignity of those who disagree with us and to treat all persons with the reverence they deserve. We seek a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, and the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. You stay standing for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
There are
City
none.
Manager? Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. As we by now hopefully know, items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the Board of Commissioners and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the board member so requests. Anyone have any requests to take an item off? No? Okay. City Clerk, will you read the items for recommendation for approval, please?
Okay. Minutes for the October 24th, 2017 City Commission meeting. Receive and file documents, personnel actions, and the following municipal orders. Approve the annual maximum contributions for healthcare flexible spending accounts for full-time employees of the City of Paducah. Providing for annual adjustments for future flexible spending account maximum contributions to match the rise or fall in the consumer price index at the close of a 12-month period as determined by the Internal Revenue Service, and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents related to same. Authorize the amendment and renewal of the 2016-2017 fuel supply agreement with JSC Terminal LLC. Establish a permit fee for commercial collection of recyclable solid waste.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner Holland?
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Harless?
Aye. Commissioner Abraham?
I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance approving the final report of the Paducah Planning Commission on the proposed zone change from R1 low density residential zone to HBD Highway Business District for property located at 2909 Lone Oak Road and 2835 Maryland Street. This ordinance is summarized as follows. Rezone property located at 2909 Lone Oak Road and 2835 Maryland Street from R1 low density residential zone to HBD Highway Business District, and amending the Paducah zoning ordinance to affect such rezoning.
Second.
Any discussion? City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner Holland?
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Harless?
Aye. Commissioner Holland?
I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance extending the boundary of the City of Paducah, Kentucky by finalizing the annexation of certain properties lying adjacent to the corporate limits of the City of Paducah and defining accurately the boundary of said properties to be included within the said corporate limits. This ordinance is summarized as follows. The City of Paducah hereby approves the final annexation of certain tracts of property contiguous to the present city limits located at 2909 Lone Oak Road and 2835 Maryland Street and containing 0.9 acres more or less.
Second.
Discussion? City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner Holland?
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Harless?
Aye. Commissioner Rhodes?
Okay. I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2017-06-8487 entitled, an ordinance adopting the City of Paducah, Kentucky annual budget for the fiscal year July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018 by estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the operation of the city government. This ordinance is summarized as follows: that the annual budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2017 and ending June 30th, 2018, ordinance number 2017-06-8487 be amended by the following reappropriations. Transfer $320,000 from solid waste fund reserves to solid waste fund, $5,000. Transfer $25,000 from the general fund reserves to transient boat dock fund. Transfer $52,000 from general fund reserves to general government fund. Transfer $72,000 from fleet lease trust fund to reserves to fleet lease trust fund.
Second.
Thank you very much. John, you want to come give us just a brief overview? I know I saw the notes, but I think it would be nice for people who are watching to have an understanding of what we're up to.
Right. The biggest transfer we're trying to make here is to begin the recycling program, which is paid for out of the solid waste fund. And most of that money is going to be used to buy the recycling rollouts. The transient boat dock, what we're going to do there is, when we first started this, we've never run a boat dock before. And we didn't appropriate enough money to take care of some things that were pretty critical to the operation. And we hope to pay for all of those expenditures with the sale of fuel and renting of spaces at the dock. The general government appropriation for a position, that's in general government, the mayor's, city manager's office, where we're going to bring in get the name of the position. Somebody help me out here. Administrative assistant, thank you.
Yep.
That one. And that'll be paid for with general fund reserve monies. And then the last one, the Fleet Lease Trust Fund. Back in September, we passed ordinance to buy, I think it was 10 cruisers plus 2 more that had gotten wrecked, I believe to no fault of ours. And we just needed to have enough money we appropriated to buy the cars, but we didn't appropriate any money to pay for them. And so this will take care of that. Anybody have any questions?
Is that how we do with the fleet fund, is we appropriate to buy them, and then at the time of purchasing, we make the decision to move the money to?
Yeah, what we literally do is at the beginning, during budget time, we do a fleet plan and figure out what we think we need, and then we appropriate money accordingly. And so in this particular case, we didn't necessarily know that we were going to have a couple of cars that got wrecked.
I see.
So this is kind of off. We don't know that.
I see.
So everything else is taken care of except for these 2. Now, if we have more that happen later, insurance will cover a lot, but not all, as just like at home it wouldn't either. And so what we have to do is appropriate enough money to go ahead and pay for them. We have money sufficient to go ahead and take care of them for now, but by the end of the year, when we buy the rest of the vehicles, the money will be gone.
Right.
So that's what this is for.
Got it. Thank you very much.
John, when a car, after the police department or whatever department sort of leases their cars, if you will, from your office.
Yeah, the way it literally works is they lease it from the lease fund, not from
the lease fund. Okay, but that's under your
Yeah, we control it, yeah.
your control.
Yes.
So what happens when one of Chief's police cruisers, be it wrecked or be it just at the end of its useful life, it gets sold?
Yes.
So what happens to those? Do those funds come back to?
They go back to the trust fund.
Okay.
That's exactly what, and insurance proceeds would also go back to the trust fund. Everything goes back. The trust fund is like its own entity, and it has all the assets. And even though everybody that drives a vehicle or a dump truck or whatever it may be, they may think that's a police car that the department owns. No, they don't own it. The fleet trust fund actually owns all the rolling stock, and they just rent that from the trust fund. They pay for it that way. That's how we pay for everything.
Okay.
So on the city's balance sheet, those assets are shown in that enterprise fund, aren't they?
That's correct. That's exactly right.
Okay.
You know, they're shown on the fleet trust fund's balance sheet. That's right. It's like a private business almost, except that the city wholly owns it and control it.
Sure. Good idea. Okay, thank you.
Is that all? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, city manager?
Received a letter today from AFSCME Local 1586, which is a union that has employee groups in both Public Works and Parks and Leisure Services, that they wish to initiate contract negotiations for the contract that expires the end of the current fiscal year. And they've asked to commence negotiations in December of this year. I believe that we are approaching the end of a 3-year contract, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Rick? I believe it's 3 years. So the anticipation would be that the union would be interested in a multi-year contract again, as presumably the city would be. I've asked Rick to come forward. As you recall, a couple weeks ago, I shared some information with you relevant to the Pecan Buckner intersection issue that has come up from time to time, and Rick and his staff identified a range of options for that, and he will go over those briefly tonight, but more especially we're looking for direction from the commission as to whether you want to proceed with a traffic warrant study. So Rick is going to explain the need for that and how that would play out as well.
Mayor, Commission, City Manager, good evening. As City Manager stated, I drafted a memo that had some attachments with it and some work that our staff put in on this. There's basically 4 options to pursue. One is the do nothing option of maintaining what we have out there now, which is an inconvenience to a portion of our public that has come to our attention that we're being asked to address. Another option is to make it an always stop where Pecan would stop as well at the intersection. That would allow more gaps. Another option would be, why don't we just add a signal? With signal, you have long-term maintenance costs. There's a heavy installation cost associated with that. There's also a 4th option of adding a left turn lane, but there are a lot of physical considerations to do there, because if you're familiar with Buckner Lane, it comes under I-24, and you've got these bridge piers, these concrete bridge piers that are directly left and right of the edge of pavement. I've looked at that. I measured that carefully. A 3rd lane or a left turn lane could be added, squeezed in there without and maintain the bridge clearance to do that. We also have to consider that as well. But when you introduce a left turn lane, you have to have that opportunity as when you're driving down the road to swell the pavement out or transition or taper it out to do that, and that takes a little bit of distance to do that. I think it's Stanley Drive is right there. We can actually cause that to happen between Stanley and the intersection and not go beyond Stanley. There's a large drainage ditch that's just to the north of Buckner. So we're trying to minimize some things there. Of all the things that I've identified, you have a potential capital outlay of $0 to $80,000 to $90,000. Okay, for example, the geometric widening, it's around $85,000. A signal could run you anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000. A stop sign could run you as much as $150. But the introduction of a stop sign in a poor location that brings on, I guess, interruption to traffic that doesn't need to be there may bring on more hazardous things such as accidents that are unnecessary that have a lifelong, I guess, impact. So with all those options, I've made a recommendation to the city manager that maybe we conduct a traffic study. A traffic study is not done in one afternoon. A traffic study is done over several different days that give or yield different traffic patterns and results, so that you get a good cross-section of those results, so that when you come forward with a recommendation, you're coming forward with the best recommendation that has a benefit-cost ratio that is affordable and provides the most, I guess, convenient travel to the public. Something like that would be a neighborhood of $7,000 to $8,000 for a full-blown traffic study that would take place over about a month.
Can I ask a question? Did you do a traffic study before you put in the yield at Pines and Buckner? And the curb and gutter and all that?
We actually had two scenarios to consider at Pines and Buckner. You had a very wide throat. That's what we refer to that, where traffic was not aligning itself appropriately, causing some trouble. Actually, I have a geometric design that would square that intersection up. It comes to with a cost of around $100,000. That was about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. However, we do have an organization within city government called Traffic Commission, whereas I brought that design and I brought the options, and the Traffic Commission consists of myself, the city manager, the police chief, and a police department representative, of which the decision was made to go with a lower cost and install the islands.
Was there a traffic study at that time?
No, ma'am.
We did have, but you did bring it, didn't you bring us to approve it?
No, actually that work, Commissioner, was done through our street rehabilitation contracts, where we could go out and implement that
I
pretty
do
quickly.
believe that there was conversation at the commission level with that.
Oh, yes, sir.
That was
Yes, sir.
precipitated by some concerns of the neighbors up there, so
Yeah.
that was not done in isolation.
So,
of the commission.
Rick, I'll probably use the wrong term, but on this, if you made a dedicated left turn at Pecan and Buckner, is it the term spillback? Or is how many people could be in that left lane?
That's, I'm sorry.
Am I using the right term? I'm not trying.
Queuing.
Queuing.
How many folks are in
Be
the queue? How long is the line?
Yes, sir.
And for that, that's what's determined. I mean, what's really probably causing the, I guess, irritation is you don't have room for that left turner, and everybody's in line. And once you get that one left turner, everything backs up. But if that left turner had a place to be, those who wish to turn right could freely turn right without being interrupted by the one left turner. Well, how many left turners do you have? Traffic studies physically go out and you count the left turners at several different times of the day, and those, I guess, interruptions or conflicts, as we refer to them, and then make those comparisons.
And so hopefully we'd have enough space between the intersection back to Stanley Drive to hopefully
Actually,
sort of.
Commissioner, we do have a good space
So it's
for a
pretty
good
space.
left turn lane, but then you come into costs. Okay, what's the life cycle cost of a signal? There's initial cost of just building the left turn lane and having a stop sign. For example, you could have a stop sign in the left turn lane without a signal, and it would function better than it is now, because your right turners would be able to freely move, but your left turners would be waiting for a gap. But then also the addition of a signal, you have the upfront cost plus the O&M cost of it in perpetuity.
So the traffic study would make a recommendation between probably these four options, which one would fit the best to meet the needs of the traffic?
Yes, ma'am.
Help it flow smoother
Yes, ma'am.
and safer, and
Yes, ma'am.
so you'd have some statistical information.
Yes, ma'am. And for example, and this is conversations I've had, the city manager and I have had with ourselves, is conducting a traffic study like this for this particular intersection is good information to have when there's an unfortunate event that somebody may come and do open records requests and say, how was that particular signal developed, or what are the documents that precipitated the city to move forward with such a design? And having those documents is in our interest.
Is there any way that assuming that nursing home gets built, is there any way they can sort of factor that in?
Well, as far as trip generations?
Yeah, just.
Sure. I mean, one thing that we could do on that is we could say, okay, that property out there, there's actually about 80 acres that could be developed. If you consider the one large residence, it's about 52 acres. Where the nursing home or the assisted living home is about 23 acres, and then there's a few other acres. If we were to assume that were to fully develop, we could estimate the trip generations for that and include that in the traffic model.
Great, thanks.
So I have a few questions.
Yes, ma'am.
The first one is, you said a traffic study would help to determine the design, the appropriateness of a design. So is it possible that there are multiple ways to put up a traffic light? Or are we talking about the traffic study only indicating whether or not we should choose one of those 4 options, not the actual design of the traffic light system that we choose? Doesn't seem like there's too many ways to skin that cat, but I don't know for sure.
Well, Mayor, basically what the traffic study will do is produce statistical information that you could use to best fit a scenario. I would not recommend an all stop. Just going out there and throwing up an all stop. That means everybody would have to stop regardless if there was any problem. And that is not appropriate just to do, even though it's $150 a stop sign. But you're stopping people unnecessarily, and then over time you have people that just, what am I stopping here for? And they ignore it and they run it. I mean,
So sorry to interrupt you, but
I'm sorry.
So you're saying that the study is pretty much, because I think most of us don't want to do nothing. So now I'm deducting the reasoning here, right? So now we're at two options. Okay, so now we're saying that the study is going to help us understand whether or not we do, actually maybe there's 3, a traffic light, a left turn lane, or both. Or
Yes,
always
yes,
stop.
and
The always stop, he said he would not recommend.
I would not recommend that, because you'll get unfavorable returns over time.
Okay, so take that off.
Yes. 2, you have 2 options.
Oh, because, okay.
The 2 options are change the geometry that introduces a left turn lane and maintain a stop sign. That comes at a cost around $80,000 to $90,000. The signal itself also has that price tag. Okay. Over time, as this area generates, I'm not real sure that Buckner Lane is not going to need some improvement over time. So you can do some initial work on the intersection that will set you up for the next round. For example, if I was looking at this, I would probably initiate with going with the left turn lane and putting that in and let the stop sign continue. Then if you were to have a project in the future where we were trying to connect that portion of Buckner Lane, come around to Pines Road and go down to the area of Country Club Lane, of that area, maybe we have a capital project where we're making a roadway improvement. I'm not saying we're doing that yet, but you would be poised not to have to mess with that intersection at that time. Okay, and then if you had that high volume of traffic, then you would be in a better position to put a signal in at a later date.
Okay, my next question. If we do this study, is there opportunity to consider the Pines intersection as well as this intersection we're talking about? Because I think the problem is bigger than this specific intersection at Pecan.
And since we
So
don't
would
have
it-
that study from when you made the additional.
Well,
That's why I was asking, is maybe that would have some information useful now.
sure, but if we're talking about a real solution, over and over again during the rezoning conversation, we heard the Pecan Drive really did increase the traffic on Buckner, and that obviously was not built for that. And so now we have this issue where people are backing up around that culvert, and it's whatever that, it's not called a culvert, but the drop-off. So is there an opportunity to kind of study both of these kind of together rather than considering them separate because they're so close together?
Sure. I mean, we could enhance or expand the study and say, we'd like for you to study both the intersections within one study and then make a recommendations for those. I mean, that's doable. Typically, traffic studies are not isolated just to one place. They have to consider the area around them that produces the need for the traffic study. I mean, that's easily done. As you talk about that now, I would characterize it this way. Think about the distance between Pecan and Buckner. It's not that far. And as we talk about the introduction, actually the plan that I've already got, preliminary design for Pecan, Buckner, and Pines, causes a left turn lane to be put in Buckner so people can store and people can continue to travel and make left turns onto Pines Road. That causes Pines Road to be widened. Buckner to be widened at that location. So now we have a widened portion that takes some distance. Now we have a widened portion down at Pecan. Now you have this gap between the two that aren't that far apart. You're almost describing a capital project in there because you're going to be, I guess, relocating some utilities to do some of this. Not so much under the bridge, but at Pines and Buckner, you would be. But we can do the traffic study and get some recommendations out of it if you wish to expand that.
Are you looking for some guidance right now?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
I mean, I guess on that second suggestion, we could get a scope that broadened to that and come back with a cost estimate. Would that be?
Sure.
I think that would be a good way forward.
And that
Yeah,
probably
as far
wouldn't
as-
take too long.
They kind of link together.
Yeah.
It's going to give you some ideas of some expectations that may be forthcoming in the future because we do have some infrastructure needs in that area. So it's going to give you the building blocks for that.
And I like your idea about kind of that incremental step, one step at a time. Don't do something you may not need to do at this time.
But I do want to offer this. I know when we were building Pecan Drive, of course, a lot of that was closed in order for us to build through there. If we were to do something like that, we would have no choice other than to close that section to expedite that construction to get done and get them back on it because it's just so narrow in there. It's hard to allow traffic to pass and also to be successful at building what we need to build because we just have these concrete walls that are on either side and you can't detour traffic around them. So there would be an inconvenient time, but I think that could be narrowed. If we were to do that, we'd close maybe closed a month and have traffic back on it. We wouldn't do it during the winter months, though. We can't buy asphalt during the winter months.
Okay, guys, he said it here. 1 month. I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
gosh.
I'm just kidding. I'm totally joking with you. Hopefully faster than a state, that's for sure. Okay, so you have some direction to go back and look at what it would do to expand the scope to include the intersection at Pines
My
and Buckner.
takeaway from this direction would be to ask that there be a traffic study to include the Pecan Buckner, the Buckner Lane section, all the way around to Buckner and Pines, and that envelope in there, and conduct a traffic study for that.
Yes.
And be prepared
Yeah,
to
because
make-
just curiosity is, if we're supportive of doing the traffic study in that expanded scope, and there's no anticipation that expanding the scope would balloon the price out of control, right? Should we just move forward with the traffic study and not do the prolonged process of figuring out exactly?
Rick, you could have that next Tuesday night, couldn't you?
As far as a price on the traffic study, yes, I can have.
Okay. Yeah. The good news is we have 3 meetings in November. Okay, thank you very much.
right, thank you.
Appreciate you.
A couple more things.
Anything else? Okay,
Michelle,
good.
there's something you'd like to bring forward? Michelle Smolin, Assistant to the City Manager. And Mark.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. So what I wanted to share with you tonight is the 2017 Voice of the People Award for Transformation and Recreation and Wellness. Pass it around.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Well, congratulations to you all. I mean, there's a big congratulations that is due to leadership of the Board of Commissioners, our city manager, obviously the Parks and Recreation Department, our management team, and the whole organization. So a little bit about what this is the City of Paducah surveyed residents in 2016 and 2013 as a part of the National Citizen Survey. So this is actually done by an outside company. And Paducah residents actually reported the highest levels of improvement in the category of recreation and wellness. And so where we saw the highest improvements were actually in path and walking trails, overall natural environment, and recreational opportunities. So according to the company who puts on this survey, it's a competitive award, and it's only given to the top performing jurisdictions who are known for best listening and acting to benefit their communities based on their results. So this is a great award. When the city manager and I received it at the International City County Managers Association, there are only a handful of these that are given out. So it's very few. It's a big honor. And so we wanted to share that with you all and just give you a little update. Good job.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank
Great
you.
job. Thank you guys so much.
Well, I do want to say this is, just the Parks and Recreation Department can't do all of this by ourselves. I mean, we have to have your support, number one, from a budgetary, financial assistance and guidance, but we have to have all of our other departments. I mean, I don't build trails. That's somebody else back here helps build the trails. And we just help them work together hand in hand on designs and the guidance that you all provide, city management, that type of thing. That's the type of form of government we have, and it really works out well from that perspective.
Thank you.
I have a question for Art Mark, and I think maybe Rick too, since you just reminded me of something that I've asked about. Did he already leave?
No.
I've mentioned before that I think it would be a good idea to add Christmas lights to our new road by the mall, but I don't know if we need official direction for that, or we just need information on whether we could even get Christmas lights, the Christmas lights attachment on those street lights. Did you ever find that out?
The main thing on that, Commissioner, is whether or not we can power them. Even though the light itself is powered, you have to have a way to physically plug those in, and then there would have to be some rewiring of the light system to provide a receptacle on the side of the pole, like many of our poles have, to actually plug the light in.
Could we find that out?
Can we find that out? Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Where are you talking about?
Like on the new Olivet Church Road, we have city street lights and city lights, and I just think that would be a nice city presence out by the mall.
But those lights end at the back. Or
Yeah, they're not very long. I mean, we're talking probably
They
like
end because
six.
we move into the county right
Yeah.
at the back of the mall property.
Just for future reference, you just hijacked the city manager's report. So, Mark, anything else?
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
And congratulations, yes.
Yeah, I think.
We do it every 3 years. Are we going to do another one in 19, I'm assuming?
Actually, it's budgeted to be conducted this year, right?
Yes.
Oh. So it must have been from 15, and then the results
Well,
were
it's
in.
13 to 16, so,
Okay,
but we do have it budgeted this year.
great, okay. Thank you.
And of course, the more times that's done, the longer the trend line becomes, and the stronger the benchmarking capabilities internally, as well as with other cities around the country that are part of the database for that. So,
Excellent, thanks.
Mark, you have an employee that I think we want to mention.
I want to keep Murray Looper in your thoughts. Murray is the president of the AFSCME union, and he is home but very ill. And so we want to make sure that we keep him in our thoughts and prayers at this time. Murray has really been he's been in my department for several years, and excuse me, he has been, Commissioner Abraham has been here the longest, from knowing that there were difficult times with AFSCME negotiations and other negotiations at that time. Murray's been one of those that's helped break the ice on that from management and employee standpoint. And we've got good relations now. I was even talking to one of the negotiators, said, we ought to be able to get this negotiation done fairly quickly this time. But that's a tribute to the way Murray helped conduct some of these meetings. So just want to make sure that we keep him in your thoughts.
Absolutely, thank you. Any comments from the board? Anyone? No? We don't have any public comments in the box? Okay. With that, Commissioner Wilson, you have a motion for executive session?
I move that the board go into closed session for discussion of matters pertaining to the following topics: issues which might lead to the appointment, dismissal, or disciplining of an employee was permitted by KRS 61.8101F, and a specific proposal by a business entity where public discussion of the subject matter would jeopardize the location, retention, expansion, or upgrading of the business entity as permitted by KRS 61.8101G.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner Holland?
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Hurlis.
Aye. And we'll come back out to adjourn. All right, thank you all.
Okay.
Do I need to sign these right now?